Sometimes companies, we look at these shiny objects, look at this new thing that we're going to do, but it's sometimes the basic blocking and tackling, grinding out those, 10 yards at a time, those first downs that make all the difference in whether a customer wants to stay with you or leave.
You're listening to CX Passport, the show about creating great customer experiences with a dash of travel talk. Each episode, we'll talk with our guests about great CX, travel, and just like the best journeys, explore new directions we never anticipated. I'm your host, Rick Denton. I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport. Let's get going. When you're working for one of the world's most well-known brands, MasterCard, you have a massive impact on customer experience. Even the definition of customer has a wide spectrum as you consider the end customer tapping the card, the bank choosing MasterCard network, and the retailer managing the purchase. With that breadth of impact, customer experience matters. With that, though, we in the CX world, we often get into this echo chamber of ourselves. We say to others, everyone should be focused on the customer, or spend time trying to encourage what we might label as, quote, non-customer facing roles to be more customer-centric. Wouldn't it help, though, if we learned from the people who wouldn't necessarily describe themselves as being in a customer experience role? How can we learn from them about what it takes to focus on the customer? Let's do that today as we talk with Jeff Krogman, Senior Vice President at MasterCard. Jeff currently drives the delivery of content and technical writing. With that, we can see a path to the customer, even though there's not a direct contact point. So how does this compare to, say, the frontline contact center agent or the retail employee or the gate agent when we think of a wide spectrum of those that interact with the customer directly? Jeff and I met at a Customer Experience Awards reveal party. He's got CX in the blood and brings that perspective of the need for all roles to keep the customer at the center. In an industry, payments, experiencing and really having already experienced significant change, how can an experience be designed that will retain and attract customers to stick with your brand? Let's find out with Jeff today. Jeff, welcome to CX Passport.
Rick, I really appreciate it. It was great to meet you at that conference, and I'm really happy to be here with you today.
It's going to be fun. This one I'm enjoying. It's a slight departure, but I kind of say that about all my episodes. There's such a wide range, so I like slight departures. Let's just start with the beginning because it is a bit of a departure. I mentioned how you work for MasterCard in the intro, but it didn't really in detail describe your role. Would you just share a little bit about your role for the listener, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I work in our technology organization, and I work for a group that's called Global Customer Care. And within Global Customer Care, there's many facets to what we do. You mentioned the end consumer, so we do have a business-to-consumer interaction. You talked about the contact centers, et cetera. We have a B2B where we are working with our governments, our digital giants, the banks, if you will, government agencies. So we're working, closely in that traditional B2B model. But we also handle some delivery of products in onboarding. We also handle some activities as it relates to content. You mentioned content, and such an important thing. I think it oftentimes is overlooked. And my role really is to look across the organization. I think it's all of our roles, truthfully, to look across the organization and that customer experience and how they're interacting with MasterCard, how they're consuming MasterCard's products. And from a service perspective, are we delivering the absolute best of MasterCard every single day? Because let's face it, people have options.
Right. Yeah, that optionality is something I don't know if we necessarily give enough mental space to it as customers, but it's absolutely there, right? It's not that we have to choose a particular to one or the other, and so our experience with that will be what matters. I want to talk about that technical writing and that content space for a little bit. And the reason I want to pick on that one is because some of the other areas you're talking about are traditionally customer facing. We understand them. They face that customer. When I think about technical writing or product or content, it can be very internally focused. You're centering, how do I describe the product, and not as much on that external customer. Or I suppose there's a risk of that. So how do you keep your team focused on the customer, and what does that look like?
What's interesting is I heard a statistic not too long ago that MasterCard has over 800 products that we
Oh
offer.
my gosh.
If you think
Really?
about, yeah, over 800 products. Acquisitions, we've been heavy in the acquisition space for a while, but yeah, that's the number I've heard now. I suspect that's probably pretty close to being accurate. And if you think about writing, technical writing, and if you have a customer, and I'll talk about a B2B customer here, that has so many products with MasterCard, and how do you interact with them and give them the information that they need that only pertains to them? And that's something that, we can certainly inundate and bury a customer. As a former customer of MasterCards on the B2B side, I experienced that firsthand. And I never want a B2B customer, to ever experience that again. So, one of the things that I'm really proud of is we're looking at how we interact and how we talk to our customers in writing, technical specifications, making sure that we're giving them the information that they need, but we're not making it too complicated or so that they have to, they don't understand it. We're also trying to tailor it. We're trying to personalize it, to make sure that when we speak to them, we're giving them only the information that pertains to them. And I will tell you, with a company this size, it's tough because you want to make sure that you're not missing something, that there's not something that we didn't give a customer that they actually need. So that's been a challenge, and that's something that we continue to, work through and focus on. But I'm really excited about the personalization aspect of being able to deliver content to our customers specific to how they participate with Mastercard.
I actually want to circle back to that personalization here in a little bit. Uh, but I think before I want to talk about personalization, I want to talk about who is the customer. I've danced around it a little bit. You've mentioned a B2B customer. Yeah, when you and I first met, my mentality was really focused on me, the end customer. I have wallet, I have card, I tap card, end of message there, right? There's clearly more customers to be had there. So I'm curious, maybe just give us a sense of what is the suite, the spectrum of customers, and how you think of the word customer when it comes to MasterCard.
I think it's important first to um, make sure that everybody understands that Mastercard participates in a four-party model, and
Okay.
that is that we are not direct to consumer. We do have relationships with the merchants, which you talked about in the onset, and we have processors, and we have the financial institutions that actually issue our products. And we've stayed true to that four-party model. So when I talk about the customer in a B2B perspective, I truly am talking about an entity, whether it be a digital giant or a government agency issuing
Yeah.
a benefit card or a traditional financial institution. And more we're seeing, an uptick in fintech. So from a core business model, our customers are those that I just described.
This is your captain speaking. I want to thank you for listening to CX Passport today. We've now reached our cruising altitude, so I'll turn that seatbelt sign off. While you're getting comfortable, hit that follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast app so you'll never miss an episode. Love it if you'd tell a friend about CX Passport, leave a review so others can discover the show as well. Now, sit back and enjoy the rest of the episode.
And it's even there, right? As you're saying it, right? I guess the customer with the card in my hand at the store, is the customer of your customers. So indirectly, you're serving me, but that's not who you're working with directly. So I'm kind of curious. You've got the spectrum of customers. How are you? Well, there's two things that I want to ask about. You talked about the personalization. Let's go there second. Let's start with just how do you even go about getting the input from the spectrum of customers? What does voice of the customer look like in this scenario? In these scenarios, actually.
When you're talking about, I'm going to talk about a traditional financial institution.
Okay.
And when we partner or we work with a traditional financial institution, the thing that's important, and I can talk about this because I used to sell for MasterCard, it's not about us, it's about them and what makes them successful and what makes them be able to service their end consumer the way they need to, whether it be lending or whether it be a checking account, whatever it might be. And when you hear that, when you understand their voice, and by the way, this model can apply to you name the customer type, but I'm talking about a traditional financial institution. We try to meet them and deliver to them a solution that meets their needs, that will help them be successful and effective. And in many cases, that could be at the checking account, for example, where we say, we have a solution where you could potentially do a pay by account or a traditional debit card or whatever it might be. But that's really what we try to do is understand customer needs, customer pain points, and how we solution against those.
Actually, can I pull at that thread a little bit? You talk about customer pain points. So it's again that kind of listening there. How are you hearing, and it can be any of your examples, any of your customers, but how are you hearing those pain points? Because it's not the traditional, customer calls in and says, heck, I just had an experience with a brand this morning, which will remain unnamed, has nothing to do with the payment side, but they found out about the issue that I was having because I contacted them directly. Something was broken in their product. And so how are you hearing those pain points? And then what do those solutions tend to look like? How are they getting out to your customer and then to your customer's customers?
So one of the things that we do is, we have a traditional voice of a customer interaction that we conduct, but we also use a lot of data. We have a lot of insights. We've introduced speech and text analytics, some artificial intelligence to really understand and drill down into what the customer needs might be without them having to tell us everything. And then we solution against that, right? We do understand that for our B2B customers to be competitive, they have to have a competitive product. What would make you as a consumer choose a financial institution over the financial institution across the street? Mm-hmm. Is it because they have a MasterCard or a different branded card? Or is it because they have a different type of an account that you need that's more beneficial? So I think what we try to do is understand what they're saying, what their true pain points are, and how we can overlay that. So we really do look at them at a fundamental level and understand, okay, this is something that we think we can help you with a type of a product solution, whether it be, like I said, a card, a digital solution, pay by account, bill pay. We have so many. Loyalty is a big thing, paying with rewards and being able to donate through, when you pay with your loyalty program to a local charity, for example.
Yeah.
All of those things are really important. Those are important to the end consumer. And as a financial institution, to be able to offer a solution like that is very important to us.
Okay, that makes sense to me. So now the perfect chance for us to now let's talk about personalization, because what matters to one of your customers and a segment of customers as well might be that how do I use my loyalty program to be able to support a charitable organization in my world. Another customer might care about the insurance products associated with a particular card or the ease of check. So how do you go about that? The personalization that you talked about before with this spectrum of customers, how are you tackling some of that personalization, even if you want to get specific into sort of the content and the tech writing? How do you get that personalization right so that it's not so granular that it's impossible, but that it's not so big that it's worthless to the customer?
I think I'm gonna talk about a couple of things here. Number one, I'm gonna talk about the end consumer for a second. And one of the things that's important is segmentation and understanding, who the actual consumers and what segment they will fall. And I'm not trying to label anybody, but buyers, spenders, they do fall into certain segments. You'll have high earners, you'll have travelers, you'll have everyday spenders, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. And understanding, one of the things that people may be surprised about is one of the most used type of card would be like everyday spend, gas and groceries. And guess who uses that? More so, it's women, we found. Okay. So what are some of the things that we can do from a benefits, from an insurance, from a protection to make things easier? Those are all things that we look at. Now, when you talk about content and technical writing, what may apply to you as a financial institution, as an acquirer for merchants, may be completely different. And how you talk to them and how you write to them. And trying to understand their back office, understand their environment. It's not always easy. Yeah. So we try to be consistent. One of the things I would love to do sometime, and we haven't, and I've thought about it, is for somebody to take what we write to a customer and follow those instructions and see what happens. Yeah. Kind of eating our own dog food, if you will.
Absolutely.
Because I have actually had customers ask me for SLAs around our technical writing, our documentation.
Interesting. I don't know that I've heard the term SLA associated with technical writing. Okay, that's interesting. The idea of going out and doing exactly that. All right, I have, and I'm just not as familiar with the products, but I have something that needs to get initiated, something that needs to be modified. And I need to follow the set of instructions. We talk a lot about that in the customer experience space, of that walking in our customer's shoes and actually doing that thing. I can see why that'd be something that you'd want to do. Have you run into a situation where like the technical writing that you're getting that feedback back from the customers of, hey, I don't understand this, I don't know how to operate in this, and then how do you take that feedback and then pivot it into something that's clearer and more focused? I don't want to use more focused on the customer, but that idea of you've heard what they've said and you've improved upon what they've done.
I think one of the things that's really important is, as a technical writer, oftentimes you're not a subject matter expert. You may be aligned and assigned to a developer, and that person may be the one writing those requirements, and it's up to the technical writer to then really decipher and make sure that we're writing in a way, communicating in a way that makes sense. So I think one of the things that's really important is for us, even as technical writers, to understand what's being said, the product, and the requirements. Because what happens is you end up getting frustrated customers. You get a bunch of calls into our contact centers, and you basically get a situation where, in many cases, our B2B customer is saying, I have got to get this thing developed and programmed and into my environment before this rolls in on your side. Otherwise, there could be financial penalties or whatever it might be, right? So it is really incumbent on us to understand, to get close to, and be the best that we can be. And I'll tell you, that is not easy.
Oh, Jeff, that's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. That's not easy. You're talking about an incredible suite of demands on someone trying to get that content right, get the experience right for the customer, all that together. That's not easy. And you and I were talking before we hit record here, we're talking about travel, and sometimes, a little pivot here, travel isn't easy as well. And I want to give you a little break here. I want us to take a break and join me here in the First Class Lounge, a nice place of respite for our travelers or for the conversation as well. We'll move quickly here, have a little bit of fun. What is a dream travel location from your past?
A dream travel location from my past. I will tell you, I have been very fortunate in working for MasterCard to have traveled a lot of places. I mean, there's a lot of places I still want to go. My favorite place has been Florence, Italy.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah.
How recent is that for you?
I was there a number of years ago. I was just in Rome within the last 2 to 3 years on my way to Greece. I had to stay over. I was just in Athens, and I liked it. It wasn't my favorite. And even Rome, I like it, but it's just not Florence. So there's just a lot of history, a lot of arts, a lot of the Renaissance you see in Florence. The food is outstanding. The people are friendly.
Yes.
Everybody drinks wine. It seems there's no age, restriction there. So it was just a really, really both relaxing, educational, and I just love that trip.
The reason I asked how long it's been, there's something about Florence that just gets into your soul, and it had been decades since I'd been to Florence before returning again with my family, and I still remembered it vividly as the backpacker, then becoming the traveler there. It's just a city that just gets in all the way through everything, the food, the sights. Heck, I even brought back a coffee mug from Fiorentina, the football, the soccer club there.
Oh, no
it
kidding.
just gets all the way through you. Bistec Fiorentina, there's nothing quite like it there. A big old slab. All right, we can't just talk about Florence, although I could spend the entire episode talking about that. You've mentioned some places you want to be. So where is a dream travel location you've not been to yet?
So I will tell you, before we got on air, I was telling you about, upcoming trips that I just came back from the Nordics, Norway and Denmark, and I'm back on my way back there to Denmark on Sunday. But I'll tell you, I've never seen the Northern Lights, and
Yeah.
From what I understand, Finland, Sweden, Norway, they're very visible, they're very vibrant. That would be someplace I'd really want to visit because I just have never seen it, and I find them fascinating.
I'm going to point you to a show. I've never seen them either. I want to see them. I think they'd be stunning. There is a show out, I believe it's Netflix, Eugene Levy. And he
Okay.
is doing traveling, and his character is he doesn't like to travel, doesn't want to leave where he is, and so he's put in these. And the first one is Finland, I believe, and it is getting to see the Northern Lights and other things of there. So check out that episode; you might enjoy that as you
I will.
get
I
your
like
trip
Eugene
planned.
Levy too.
Oh, he's hilarious. Great.
Yeah.
So there you go. Listeners, go check out that show. It's pretty good. I haven't made it through a couple episodes, but it is fun so far. We talked about food, Jeff. What is a favorite thing of yours to eat?
Oh man. So, you know what? I can't pass up a really good steak. I'm a fan. I'm definitely a fan of steak. I'm not a fan of seafood. So I would probably say a steak would be my number one.
Nice. Well, you know who you're talking to here in the North Texas area, how I love a
Absolutely.
good piece of steak.
Absolutely.
And I didn't say this at the beginning. Tell the listeners where you're from.
I'm originally from Wisconsin.
Okay.
But I'm located now in Lake St. Louis, Missouri. MasterCard's headquarters are in the area. I should say our technology headquarters. So
Yeah.
I relocated here back in 1998.
And so there's some good steaks there as well. But I know that you and I got the chance to meet each other here in Texas, so I encourage you to head back down here and grab another
Absolutely.
steak sometime. What is on the other side a thing your parents forced you to eat but you hated as a kid?
My mom made this thing that was called potato chip hot dish, and it was the worst thing I've ever had. It had tuna, which I don't like seafood,
Oh, okay, we're out. But keep going.
cream of mushroom soup, which I don't like
Oh,
mushrooms, canned peas, which I don't like canned peas, and she would crush potato chips and put it in this casserole dish or pan and bake it.
yeah.
And I can't imagine anything worse to eat than that.
Sorry, mom. Yeah, for all the parents, the moms, the dads that have made. I think I've had that under a different name, but I've definitely had it and have not enjoyed it. It's
No,
not my choice either.
that's awful.
Let's leave that. Think to the steaks. Now let's go back to travel. What is one travel item, not including your phone or your passport, that you will not leave home without?
Oh boy. iPad. Got to have my iPad with my AirPods.
Jeff, I want to go back to something, and we've talked about this a little bit, but I want to go a little deeper. Your team that we've talked about with the technical writing and the content focused, I don't think that we tend to formally label that as inside the customer experience space, but it clearly has this massive impact on the customer. So how does your team then engage with other teams that are perhaps the more traditionally customer facing so that you can ensure this overall delivery of great customer experience?
Well, I'm going to talk about, in addition to the content team, I also have a team that handles, we'll call it onboarding.
Okay,
So when a
good.
customer buys a product from MasterCard, and let's just say that they want to add maybe they want to add a World Elite card to their portfolio, for example. I have a team that actually works in partnership with a delivery team to make sure that the parameters, everything needed behind the scenes in our environments are set up correctly so that when a card is used, or in any product, that it works the way it should. And I'll tell you, one of the things that when I took this team over, I took that team over a number of years ago, and most of what we did was manual. And
Oh,
maybe sharing some secrets here, but it really was. And anytime you have something that you're doing that's that important, that affects production and ultimately end consumers' ability or inability to, use their MasterCard, you have to be perfect. And something like as you would think, as simple as adding a new bin to MasterCard's environment was not. It would take almost an hour, and we had this maker checker model. Somebody would manually key, and somebody would, review and make sure it was
oh
accurate. So
goodness.
all you need is one keystroke mistake, and you can have a significant impact. So I'll tell you, one of the things that we have done in this space is look to make that customer experience very different, and putting the power in their hands and the ability to do something like I just described, but in a fashion that's automated and that's, I don't want to say risk-free because there's always risk when you're dealing with
Right.
anything, but much less riskier. And doing away with forms, which are such a thing of the past, but yet so many entities now still use forms to do things.
Yeah.
So, that I don't want to say it was a war on forms, but it definitely was a way to simplify. And, obviously what we want to do is make that experience better, but accelerate time to revenue. Get those cards in the street or whatever it might be,
Yeah.
to help those end consumers and our B2B customers.
You are hitting at, I almost feel like I want to declare it. We're already in March here, and this episode will air well after March. So we're well into 2023, but I feel like 2023 is the year of process for customer experience. I keep hearing that over and over. So when you're talking about automating, when you're talking about a war on forms, when you're talking about getting faster, it feels like that our pendulum was over in the digital or the creative and not to be anti-digital, but just sort of the big bang kind of space of customer experience, when really people are desiring more of the just make it repeatable, make it something that is simple or efficient, or make it consistent rather than delight me. Now, that's not to say we're getting rid of surprise and delight. It's not to say that customers aren't wowed by the wow experience.
Yeah.
But it feels like I hear this conversation coming up more and more this year than I have in the past. And it sits very deeply into my heart. Heck, it's even the core of my company's name, Execution for Customer Experience. That process is what's going to help drive great customer experience.
I will tell you that what you just said could not be more true in our world. And I'm going to talk about this from a service perspective. Oftentimes, a customer's interaction with us can be, and any company, it can be painful. I mean, think about calling in. You had mentioned, you were on a call earlier today with, a different brand. Think about that experience when you keep pushing the buttons and you get this voice response thing, and it's hard to get to where you want to go. I mean, we focus on that, we look at that, but also whether it's if it is a financial institution saying I need content, I need to onboard a new product, I just want to look at how I report things to you. Are there ways that we can simplify and make those experiences better? And that goes for both the end consumer and our B2B customers. And I will tell you, Rick, you hit that nail on the head. Sometimes companies, we look at these shiny objects, look at this new thing that we're going to do, but it's sometimes the basic blocking and tackling, grinding out those, 10 yards at a time, those first downs that make all the difference in whether a customer wants to stay with you or leave.
You know what? Let's just end the podcast here. I'm going to edit it to where all we do is just have those last 2 minutes. That's all we're going to have available. Folks, you're just going to hear that 2023 is the year of process and customer experience. And Jeff, you're absolutely right. We just get the first downs. Quit trying to throw it's exciting. I would love it if CeeDee Lamb, I'm going to use a Cowboys reference, would catch the 80-yard pass for a touchdown. But I also really like it when Tony Pollard knocks out a 4-yard run to get a first down, knowing that we get to stay on the field for a little bit longer. And yes, I probably just lost half or more of my listener base now that they know I'm a Cowboys fan, but at least it's a global podcast. So here, I'm going to offend the other half. I'm a Chelsea supporter. So there, if you don't like Chelsea, then you really hate everything. Jeff, I want to close out with a question that's more talking about the industry in general. It is an industry that has been and still is primarily dominated by the big players, the big names that we know, but there are a lot of new entrants into the payment space, a lot of new options, and even some of those that aren't all that new anymore, they become sort of standard. So how are you evolving customer experience to address all of these new industry entrants?
So it's interesting to me that you're right. Number one, that there are all these new industry entrants, and you look at some of these, and we've chosen in many cases to partner because we've built something really great. It's been around for 50 plus years, and it works. And when you talk about payments, some try to replicate, and they find it's actually hard to do. So, the best scenario in most cases, or in many cases, is a partnership model. So we do look at that. But I will tell you, we have made an acquisition in the Nordics, and this acquisition of 11 million people between Norway and Denmark, 9 million, I think, was it 9 million of those people that live there use this product for their
Holy
everyday
cow.
lives. So it becomes part of critical infrastructure, right? It's their
Yeah.
economy is based on it, and it's a bill pay solution. And the idea to make, and I've heard this, and I love this, making bill pay, cross-border bill pay, as easy as texting. That is a vision. That is an aspiration, but it's absolutely something that we want to do. And how we interact, you know, let's face it, if some customer has a question about a bill, that may be how we may handle that one way. If a customer says, listen, I can't get this processed, my end consumer can't make this bill payment, that is a
Yeah.
very different customer interaction. And how we treat those with urgency, it makes a big difference. So we are truly trying to tailor and look at how we not only structure ourselves, but how we interact with the different types of entities that we partner with or that we acquire, to make sure that they're really truly getting the best of us, and the best experience possible with MasterCard. Because I'm telling you, the experience, service, etc., matters as much as anything else, if not more.
Let's end it right there. That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. I love the idea of spirit of partnership as these entrants are coming in, but the idea of the service experience being the epicenter, it speaks very truly to everything I believe. Jeff, if folks wanted to get to know a little bit more about you, your approach to customer experience, your approach to the customer in general, even understanding the MasterCard offering that you can speak to, what's the best way for folks to learn more?
I think that I'm always welcome. I welcome that. I'd say I'm open to people linking in with me. I'm open to people even email me. And depending. I mean, I have limited time, but I always try to make time for this. And I do believe it's important to talk across the industry and with other entities around how they experience and what do they do and what's their approach. Because I'm a believer that we can all learn from one another, and truly, if we have kind of the heart of the customer top of mind and central to what we do, it's a benefit to all of us.
I'll definitely get the LinkedIn, your URL for LinkedIn in the show notes. Scroll down, you'll be able to see. Jeff, I have absolutely enjoyed this conversation. I'm so glad that I was able to that you brought in some football references and I was able to follow along with those. But that spirit, that focus, and it's true. It doesn't matter what the label of the team is or whether it's direct customer, indirect customer. It's all about advancing that customer ball down the field, if you will, and improving that service experience. I love what you shared with us, and I certainly love the willingness to learn from others' ideas and share that back and forth. That's the spirit of CX Passport and a podcast in general. And thank you for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom with the wider CX Passport audience. Jeff, thanks for being on the show.
Rick, I really, it's been really a pleasure getting to know you, and I appreciate the offer, and it was my pleasure to be here today.
Thanks for joining us this week on CX Passport. If you like today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. Click subscribe on the CX Passport YouTube channel or your favorite podcast app. Next, leave a comment below the video or a review in your favorite podcast app so others can find and enjoy CX Passport too. Then head over to cxpassport.com for show notes and resources that can help you create tangible business results by delivering great customer experience. Until next time, I'm Rick Denton, and I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport.